Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Prakhar ke PRAVACHAN. Now, this is a serious video. This is a serious video, even though Clow won't let it be. But this is a video I'm releasing from the walls of the inner circle. This is stuff that is generally not accessible to the public. We don't put it on YouTube. This is generally for a specific set of people. But I decided, I was like, I'm going to give this experiment a shot. Let me see how long can a long video be and how long can people actually sit through a long video. Now, having said that, there's a few things that I want you to completely understand before you begin watching this video. Number one, this is a long video with a very dense blueprint for something that is very, very important to you. For most people, including men and women, this is extremely important because attraction is one of those things neither men nor women are completely able to articulate for themselves. Right? Two, when you watch this video, when you watch this video, the video is sufficiently long where you might find yourself tempted to switch away from the video, check your Instagram or check your WhatsApp or go do some other random meaningless stuff. But if you're choosing to watch this video, I already know that you're watching this video with the specific purpose of learning about something. And so you might as well stick through it. Sit through the whole discomfort of watching something as real as this. Three, and this is just a thought me and my team we've been having, right? Because when I was making this video, I realized that people like my nephew, people like my younger brother could genuinely benefit from this kind of stuff. So we thought, and we are not sure yet, but we thought we might as well create a product around it. Stuff that we can give to people that they can apply that will make their romantic lives, their dating lives a lot better. Now, I don't want to specifically target dating, but it's going to be something around that, something to do with that. If you are interested in that, I'm going to put a link in the description. Please go to the link and get on the wait list. If I find enough people are on the wait list, I'll release a product to that effect.
My name is Prakhar Gupta and I build more confident Indian minds.
Attraction is primarily a biological phenomena. And just like Ben Shapiro got very famous for once saying, facts don't care about feelings, biology does not care about feelings. Biology is pretty objective. In the way that it expresses itself. Which is not to say that uske beyond, there aren't cases where even if you have all of these things, you won't get rejected. You will, obviously. Because at the end of the day, every person has a type. Whether you believe it or not, there is a very active filter that women have around type. You may just not be her type. She is interested in the kind of a man who's attractive, but in her specific way, in her way of looking at things. And so at that point, you have to understand rejection is part of the game. Well, this video is not even about how you get more dating opportunities or how you get better relationships or none of that. We are not even trying to do that. But just so you know, this is not an objective formula in the sense that will land you the outcome. This is an objective formula in the sense it will give you a complete picture on one of the longest lasting mysteries that men have forever, which is what makes me more attractive. Right? I don't know if you were one of those guys. I remember being that guy back in 2015-16 where I thought it's having big muscles and like having a six pack and stuff like that. And I tried that. Like I ran with that stuff. I remember working out twice a day, 1.5 hours each, just trying to get that. And the inner motivation I had, admittedly, now I can admit it. Back then I would say I wanted to be fitter, but now I can say it was just being more attractive. And I found out, no matter how attractive I did get physically, it did definitely increase my odds of being found attractive. It did not complete the picture. I was still like, I would still get comments like, you're a very attractive man, but it's like there's something, and just unfinished feedback with that I'm supposed to do something with that. So it's not evident that it's how you look. There's more to it, right? Some people think it's being rich. That's a very common one, right? And these guys, I'll tell you the category of these guys. They'll spend, the way sexuality motivates people is just on a different plane. And so they'll spend their life accumulating money. So much money they cannot count. So much money they can never spend. Even if they tried, all of that money can never be spent. Right? And then they'll turn 40, 45. They'll start getting weird. And I don't know if you ever come across men like that, but women will call them creepy. He tried to hit on me. That was so creepy. He's so much older. Right? He's my boss. And this kind of shit just pops up everywhere, man. Harvey Weinstein is one of those dudes. who confused power for being attractive and then tried to make moves in that way. I don't think saying he got confused is the right way of saying that. The man's a predator. But I'm trying to give you the stereotype of an example that satisfies the premise. There's a bunch of more people that I don't necessarily want to discuss, but it's a very common phenomenon. People make that assumption, they run with that assumption, and they find eventually that assumption's not true at all. They find out that it's not the case that what they thought made them attractive, and now when they feel rejected, in part, what is hurt in them is all the effort they put in there to be attractive, and they find out they're still not it. You would be so surprised how many people, how awfully successful they are, but still creeping around in women's DMs because they're not attractive. And people make so many horrible mistakes from which neither the woman nor the man can recover just because they did not know what it is that makes them attractive. I think so many of the male-female dynamic issues would be solved if men understood what it is that women like about them. At least women at large. Because specific women have specific tastes. It's always subjective. You know, one of the fun things I've been doing these days has been just watching a bunch of dating reality TV shows. And part of it came from just like post 10 p.m. guilty consumption of television. It's just lo-fi, it's easy to watch, it's not heavy, right? It's not intellectually burdening in any way, but eventually it became just a psychological experiment to observe, this social experiment to observe and see how people behave. And one of the most interesting things I find in a lot of these shows, with a lot of the women in these shows, is that they will say something like, yeah, he's an attractive guy, but he's so sweet, he's so nice, but I just don't feel the chemistry. And what they're essentially saying is, yeah, he's objectively super nice and super attractive and all of those things, but I don't find a subjective sense of attraction. I don't feel the chemistry, as if the chemistry is some magical thing, right? What she doesn't feel is a subjective sense of you being attractive. And there's much to be said about it. But all these symptoms are symptoms of the same problem, which is that you do not understand what constitutes attraction. So let's begin talking about attraction. And the best way to speak about attraction is to bifurcate the concept into two zones. One is purely the characteristic zone. What characteristics constitute attraction? What is it about you internally? What is true about you as a human being that makes you attractive? The other is signals, which is what are the communication things, and I don't just mean verbal communication. What is it about you that communicates those characteristics? You have to understand that this is partly communication theory. One is, what is it about you? Who are you? And the second is, how does that get communicated? Because it's very, very essential. Like a lot of extremely rich guys, where being rich and successful is a marker of attraction, are very needy, are very desperate. And so they'll try to flaunt their wealth. They'll try to throw it around. They'll try to tell her, you know how much money I make? She'll be like, I'm not interested. Even though it is objectively a measure of what is attractive and what is not, just because of the way it is communicated, because of the way it's signaled, it's now deeply unattractive. So both those things go hand in hand. Okay, have you followed up until? Have you pulled out your notebooks? Because you're going to have to write a lot of the stuff that comes from here. Number one, characteristics. These characteristics are purely evolutionary. These characteristics are purely biological and have a link deeply tied to our evolutionary history and the environment in which our ancestors grew up. If you understand the mystery, if you completely understand the puzzle of evolution, what you begin to understand is beyond just natural selection. The human intelligence, the human species evolved because of a process called sexual selection. This is to say that a lot of what has turned out to be true right now outside, what is true there, is a choice that women made throughout the history of human beings. This is something that's going to be very indigestible to the politically correct types, but it's true. Women decided on those men, and that is why men became the way they did. And attractive men got it more than unattractive men. In fact, There is a historical fact about how twice as many women reproduced as men did, which basically means that some men got access to all sexual resource and all women got access to sexual resource, roughly speaking. Of course, there were outliers, but roughly speaking. Women control sexual selection. Women decide what traits get selected for on the level of sexual selection. So what are these traits? What are these characteristics? Number one is status. Status is a very studied phenomena in evolutionary sciences. Evolutionary psychologist David Buss has done many researches in which status has come out as the number one attractive factor from the woman's side towards the men. We'll get into a discussion about what that means in just a bit. Number two is ambition or achievement. Ambition is the proxy for achievement. As a young person, as somebody who goes to college, somebody who works, somebody who's 31, 32, you haven't achieved the peak of your life yet. You haven't realized your potential yet. It hasn't just happened yet, but your ambition speaks volume. But your ambition speaks volumes. It goes on to communicate what you're capable of and what you're aiming at. Number three is strength. A lot of our evolutionary history was not as safe as it is today. The modern world, what I see outside, the skyline of New York, is an artifact of only over the last 300, 400, 500 years at best. In fact, if you study the history of New York, it's hilarious. It's hilarious when this came about. And if you study the history of any city, cities being proxy for places where people are safe from nature. It's a very recent phenomenon. Before that, the number one problem was survival. The number one constraint was how to not die young. And the number one obstacle was predators and other humans, other tribes. So strong men were selected for because they kept the tribe safe. They made sure that the woman and the child survived. It's as simple as that. Strength is important. Number four is intelligence. And here is just one of the most interesting things about biology that I ever came across. When Darwin announced the theory of natural selection, he did it with another man by the name of Alfred Russel Wallace. And while Darwin was looking up finches, which is a specific kind of birds in the Galapagos Islands off the coast of Ecuador, Latin America, South America, Wallace was working in Malaysia. Wallace was doing his work with, I think, pea plants in Malaysia. And this is, I think, mid-1800s, right? 1850 something. And so Wallace and Darwin, they hear about each other's researches. They've both come to the same conclusions, one from studying animals, one from studying plants. And they talk about it. They're like, yo, we need to, we came across something great. Damn, the world needs to know. And so they present a paper to what is, I think, called the Royal Linnean Society of London or some shit like that. They go to this place where they present their findings, where Darwin talks about the finches and Wallace talks about the pea plants. And what they're coming at is the theory of natural selection. But right after that happens, Wallace gets a little confused. Wallace begins to ask Darwin, he says, Darwin, if the purpose of evolution is to say कि your species or the next selection is going to be marginally better than the previous selection, because itne se survival odds increase, then why are humans so much more smarter than the smartest of animals? So much more. This does not seem marginal. One of the principles of evolution is marginal algorithmic growth. You can Google it and read up about it later. Essential idea being that evolution happens as an algorithmic process. It does not care about what it's selecting for. And the improvement is always incremental and marginal. Thodi, and based on what already exists. And intelligence is one of those confounds that we do not or did not necessarily understand in evolution. Since then, a large argument has been made. This is the dominant argument. There are some peripheral arguments, but this is the dominant argument that intelligence was selected through an alternative process called sexual selection. And so it seems very clear, and you can test this by asking women also, that intelligence is super attractive. In fact, one of the most interesting details I ever came to listen about Judaism is that in Judaism, if there is a conflict that a father has between handing off his daughter, and this is conservative Judaism, right? Not modernity. Conservative Judaism if a father has an option between an attractive, successful man and an intelligent but unsuccessful man, he should make the latter choice. Intelligence is something we've always thought as being mateable in culture and in biology. And culture is an emergent property of biology. Number 5 or number 6 or whatever, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Number 5 is an attitude constraint. And this attitude constraint is being non-judgmental. Women, or for that matter, even men, just as a core secret of being charming, you have to be non-judgmental. Because people at the bottom of their hearts fear 2 things: death and death of reputation. And a man that is judgmental about how he feels towards her incites a sense of anxiety in her mind. Is he going to talk about me improperly afterwards? We'll talk about more details as we go along. But you need to understand that there is something about creating a sense of comfort that lends itself to attraction. And that comes from being non-judgmental. And number 6, finally, is your classic physical attractiveness. Because physical attraction is not just an abstract, oh, they are conventionally attractive because the movies want you to think they are conventionally attractive. No. Physical attraction communicates biological health. This is a very studied phenomenon. Right? There is a theory around how your face is a kind of a report card, is a kind of a health report card. The clarity of your face, how many pimples you have, how many blah, blah, blah marks and scars you have, goes on to communicate how good your internal well-being is, how free of pathogens and parasites is your body. Google it up. And if you find that I'm a little bit wrong, just let me know. But I remember this from historical reading. But it's true. The phenomena is true. We'll discuss it. We'll discuss it in the signals part. Now, all these 6 characteristics that I've mentioned have different ways of being communicated, have very different ways of reaching the other person. And it's almost an anthropological problem. It's a problem of human society. It's a problem of human systems. It's a problem of people when you put them in a room, that things don't exist until they have been communicated. So, just because you have these things going for you does not mean you're attractive. They have to be communicated. The other person has to receive them. Let's start with status. Let's start with understanding what status is and what are the signals that communicate status as an attractive characteristic, whatever. Right? Status is essentially your rating in a closed room, your rating on a social level. Status is essentially how society rates you. How important are you to society? So historically, in tribes, who was very important? The leader of the tribe, the fighters in the tribe, the medicine men who understood some medicinal stuff, who understood a very important key function. Now you'll wonder why doctors are seen as attractive instantly, or men in uniform. Because uniform communicates status. Status is where the society rates you. Imagine if the world at large was a closed room and it only consisted of 100 people. What is your rating? How important are you in this room? Communicates how attractive you are to women. And one of the most interesting signals of how your status is, how high your status is or how low your status is what I call purposeful eyes. And men make this mistake so often. They'll go on dates and never make eye contact. They'll look away. What kind of a high status man looks away? What kind of a man with power? What kind of a man that has strength in society looks away? Or for that matter, it will be a group setting. Say you are at a party, you're at a networking event, you're at whatever kind of event where there is more than just you. And you look around looking for something without a purpose. You just casually you look around. What does that even mean? What does that even do? There is no purpose behind how you move with your eyes, and eyes are supremely important in attraction as a whole. I think the Bible says that the eyes are a window into your soul, and I think it's completely accurate. I've mentioned this explanation a bunch of times in my streams too. Eyes say more than almost any other part of your body language, and having purposeful eyes having an intent eye contact. When you looking with intent and purpose, changes a large part of how status gets communicated. Important men who have social status, do not look for random opportunities everywhere. And that is what having non-purposeful eyes communicate. It communicates not being grounded in yourself, not being sure of who you are, looking for something when there is no need to look for something, not being satiated, not being satisfied, not being complete. And in the same way, one of the most common errors I see people make at like parties or at events or whatever social gatherings is not walking with intent or purpose. They just walk around, go from here to there. They just walk around. It's the same thing, but with the body. It's like looking for something about you that is elsewhere. And high status men do not communicate themselves like that. There is an example I've used often where if you're ever in a room and somebody walks in and you suddenly feel like somebody's important, and you suddenly feel like the person that's just walked in is somewhat important, right? You feel the air get dense. Well, one, it's likely true. But two, the reason is this stuff. Is the reason their eyes move and their body moves. And having a purpose behind your eye engagement, be that eye contact or looking around, and having a purpose with how you walk truly communicates status. It's the most accessible, proximate shit that you can do today that will change how your status is communicated. One of the other things that is as simply changeable as your eye contact and as your body movement is how well dressed you are. Because dressing well, apart from it just looking nicer, brand signal that you have a sense of money and whatever. But think about how men who were important would dress. Think about a tribal chief. Think about a king. Think about an army general. Think about men in uniform who fight at the border. Think about doctors. There is a sense in which dressing communicates status quite directly. It's visual. Straight up visual. Things haven't even been said yet. It's the eyes, the body, and the way you dress. Instantly communicates signal. And it doesn't mean with dressing, I keep telling people, don't worry about getting your dressing to a 10 on 10. Worry about getting it to a 7.5 and 8 on 10. And from there, let your taste go up. Just don't dress in extremely loose clothes. Just don't dress in obviously old and torn up clothes. Just don't dress in shit that does not look nice. Just be remotely near modern fashion trends. You don't even have to wear the exact trend that is out and about. Just look decent and you've done most of the job of looking well, dressing well. Right? There is enough resources you'll find on dressing in the exact way, what t-shirt sizes fix you, etc. I've found that at that level, it's a little excessive. It can be a little too much, but just get the basics going. And from there, you're free to explore, I found men who find dressing to be a way in which they express themselves, and that's fine. It's very attractive to women somewhat. One of the other signals of status is your reputation. And what do I mean by reputation? As a shorthand for who is attractive, look for men that are respected by men and liked by women. That's what I mean by reputation as a signal. If you are a guy and you may not be the most attractive, the tallest, the strongest, the richest, the most successful guy, but all the other men in the room seem to respect the shit out of you, you are the first on the social chain. You're automatically just so much more attractive. If other men respect you and other women like you, attraction is a given. It's, I think there is a Dan Bilzerian interview where he's talking about this, where he's like, look, first I thought it's about the money and the guns and so on and so forth. But then I found out it's about just being seen with other women. And so I just started posting pictures of me being with very attractive women, and more attractive women started hitting me up. Because nobody has the time to completely figure you out. And after a certain level of optimizing for looks, optimizing for success, and all of those things, the lines become blurry. Is Elon Musk really more successful or more attractive than Jeff Bezos? Bad example. They're both nerdy in certain ways, but you get the point. Is Harry or Henry Cavill or whoever that guy is really more attractive than Tom Hiddleston? The lines get blurry. At that point, you rely on other people's decisions to make your decisions. And a man that is respected by other men and liked by other women is automatically more attractive. It communicates a sense of status. It communicates a sense of status. Being the leader of the tribe, being the head of the group, being essentially what I've begun to call sher. Being a sher is just so much more attractive automatically. And if you think about it, that's what popularity means. In high school, in colleges, where there is close social circles, right? That's what popularity means. That's partly why people go into the business of fame. That's what it means. I'm evidently, and okay, think about Shah Rukh Khan. Brilliant example. Respected by men and attractive to all other women. So all other women are like, oh, Shah Rukh Khan, man, Shah Rukh Khan. And all other men are like, oh, man, Shah Rukh Khan. Right? You'll find this commentary about Shah Rukh very often where they'll say something to the effect of, Shah Rukh is the only celebrity who is liked by both men and women. Because men that are liked by other women are often not liked by other men. Shah Rukh Khan manages to do both. So it's a tricky line to sort of do, but it's very possible. Enough people do it. And that's sort of what you're going for. The fourth one is a comment you hear very often, and it'll come from women and men. Right? There's this fellow I know who does fairly well with meeting women, to put it in a euphemism. And I asked him, I was like, what do you think is it about you that works? And the guy is just like, yo, bro, just be confident. You ask girls, they'll be like, yeah, I want a man that's confident. Well, what does confidence do? What makes confidence? First of all, I have hours of content on that on YouTube, on Confidence on Command, which is a video library I built for the purpose of making sure people get more confident, and in Art of Conversation, where we speak more specifically about social confidence. But confidence is the ability for you to speak with control and with fluency. For instance, I'll give you a short tip, a small example that will make it very evident, right? Confident men speak slower than anxious men. So a guy that speaks slower, takes his time, walks through things slowly, takes a pause and just waits there, is automatically more attractive. One, because even with that pace, they could control the entire room's temperature. They're in no rush to make a point. They're not particularly frantic about expressing themselves, and it definitely is not flowing from a nervous place. They speak slowly, but they speak with intent. They've been so used to being in rooms where people just wait for them to finish a sentence that they're not excited about saying what they have to say. They say it with intensity. It's one of the most common ways in which you can today build a more confident signal into your repertoire, is just speak more slowly and speak with intent, and make sure you give enough pauses in the middle. That's it. The next one is being non-needy. That's one of the other signals as a part of status. And man, if the men at the bottom understood this idea of being non-needy, they would do so much better. Like, a large majority of guys get zero access to women. Zero. And most of it is because even when they get close to a woman, they show signs of neediness. They show signs of, I want you more than you want me, before anything has ever happened. It is day 3. It is literally, we've just begun talking. Listen, I kind of like you so much already. Like, they start bending over backwards. They start accommodating her in all these different ways. Everything that she says is funny. Everything she says is right. Everything she says is okay. Everything she says is brilliant. Everything. And what it communicates is a sense of neediness, is a sense of, please like me. Please accept me. I'm fitting myself. I'm doing everything I can to fit into your idea of a great guy. So common. No men, literally no men I know from a scratch understand this principle. From a zero place. मतलब ऐसा कभी होता ही नहीं है ब्रो कि शुरू से आदमी को पता है, जीरो लेवल से आदमी को पता है कि तेरे को भाई, when you are communicating yourself, think of yourself as the prize. So many people just take the person they're trying to get attracted to themselves and put them on a pedestal and appear so needy. And you have to understand, bro, women are built to read your face. Women have the toughest job in the world, where they have to communicate with a blob of mass for 2 to 3 years that does not speak and does not express its needs properly. And the women have to take care of it. Women are programmed to read your face and your body language better than you can even think. And so there is just no way you can hide your neediness. If you are a needy man inside, if you do not come from a place of abundance, if you are not high status, and high status men get attention from enough women, they're completely okay losing out on a woman. They're completely okay standing by their principles and losing out on a woman. They're completely fine expressing disagreement. If you are not one of those guys, she will sense it. She will always sense it. She's programmed for scamsters, bro. She can sense a fraud from a mile away. She's programmed like that. She will look at you and she will read you like a book. So, a man that is unwilling to lose an engagement with a woman, a man that's going to bend over backwards for her to just like me, is going to always lose out. Because that's not communicating status enough. In fact, it does quite the opposite. Say you do all the other things I've mentioned, right? And then you're in an interaction and you're needy and she can sense it. She'll be like, bro, fraud. He's making all this shit up. He's building all of this nonsense up. I can sense he's so needy. And that just makes it so much worse. And if you get this one principle down, that in an interaction with a woman, because there is no way the odds of you aiming for somebody so much higher than you is just impossible. You'll probably aim for somebody who's in the same social strata. If you're in an educational environment, she'll be in the educational. If you're in a working environment, she'll be somewhat parallel, right? If you just start seeing yourself as the prize, as somebody who's worth being pleased, you automatically signal a sense of high status. You automatically signal you have options. It's as simple as that. And finally, the 6th or the 7th signal in this list is a man that takes lead. Bro, there is something to be said about a male to female interaction where the woman does not necessarily want to make every single decision. She wants the decisions made for her. She wants to go on a kind of an experiential roller coaster. She wants to be treated well. So instead of asking her over text messages, or instead of seeking permission with everything that you do, if you take the lead and express that this is how things will be, hey, we're meeting on Friday at 7 p.m., as opposed to just going, hey, when do you think is a good time to meet? It changes so much about the interaction. It communicates so much more of signal. It communicates so much more status. It communicates the fact that you know what you're doing, that you're in control of the situation, and that you're leading this engagement in a specific direction. Do you understand what I've been saying up until? The idea is that you're trying to build yourself to become a high status individual. And there is other things that go into becoming a high status individual. But how status gets communicated is roughly these things. It's how you look, how you walk, how you dress, what is your reputation, how do you speak, how do you express what you need and you want, who you are, right? And finally, if you are able to take the lead or not, if you're able to do the job of being the masculine presence in this relationship, in this engagement or not. Cool. Let's move on to number 2. That's ambition and achievement. If you've stuck around this long, dude, you're doing well. You're going to truly understand by the end of this video, you're going to truly understand what this is about. With ambition and achievement, one of the key signals is passion. Passion is a signal of how the spirit of a task takes over you. Like I've seen men talk about fucking comic books with so much passion. Such a nerdy thing, video games with so much passion. There is a very easy way in which you can turn video games into something very attractive, bro. Like it's almost 2023. We are hitting so many technological frontiers. Video games can be made so attractive if you knew how to communicate. Anime, we've seen a social evolution. At this point, anime is attractive, right? You can take all of these things, and if you speak about them with passion, it communicates a sense of ambition. It communicates a sense of potential. Likewise, mystery building is very important. Not answering a question straight is very important. Because if you've got achievement down, why would you want to advertise it? Something as simple as, I'll give you an example. I ran this experiment quite a lot when I first returned to America after having set up my content situations, right? There were rumors in the building that I lived, that in the penthouse on the 7th floor, there is a guy who lives who's a YouTuber. And so, like when I just moved in, I'd be in the elevator, I'd be talking to people, girls, and I'd be like, hey, hi, we just moved into the 7th floor. Yeah, this, that. And I would hear them very often say things like, oh, isn't there a YouTuber that lives on the 7th floor? And I was like, okay, pretty cool, There is some inbuilt status into fame because reputation, liked by other guys, attractive to other women. But the opposite of it was untrue. Where if somebody ever came to me and said, what did you do? And I said, I do YouTube flat. Okay, cool, nice. That sounds exciting, but that's about it. Right? Okay, what kind of YouTube? If I gave a straight answer to that question, it's flat, uninteresting, unengaging. However, if I molded the response in a certain way, where somebody's like, what do you do? I said, I talk shit and make money from that. Something as dumb as, I just flip on the camera, switch on the microphone, and I talk for a living. What does that mean? I speak about things that interest me, and people pay me money for that. It was so much more interesting automatically because there was no urgent need to prove my worth. And that's one of the mysterious things about just communicating a sense of achievement or ambition, is that it has to be advertised, but not in a direct way. Passion is a direct advertisement of it. But answering questions with a little bit of mystery, with a little bit of playfulness, with a non-eager, non-needy sense of being, works so much better. And finally, the third component, the third signal is your story. Story is quite like repetition, but at any given point when you meet somebody, they will either figure your story out or ask you about it. It's either going to come up in conversation, or she will go on your Instagram, on your LinkedIn, or whatever, and figure it out. Right? She'll talk to her friends who know you. Your story might precede you in certain ways, like it was happening with me in the elevator, right? Where, say it's a large enough group of people who kind of know each other and they know what you do, etc. And at this level, on this plane, on the level of achievement and ambition, and in the level of story in achievement and ambition, how rich and successful you are matters. A lot of men that do generate a lot of attraction generated at this level. This is the mystery you've always been able to locate but never quite been able to frame. This is the mystery. You get it? So it's your story, which is your actual realization of your potential. It's the actual manifestation of your ambition. What is your achievement? What is your achievement? And it's your story that communicates that. The third characteristic was being strong. And strength, because look, it's not like you're literally fighting. It's not like she's ever seeing you in action protecting something from somebody. You are not, like, you're never punching another person. So there's no actual measure of your strength, but there is ways in which strength and the signals of strength influence a woman's decision for attractiveness. One of them is how broad your shoulders are. Simple. How tall are you? Simple. This is what you've located, by the way. This is something you know. When you're short, the insecurity you have is exactly that. Is that you're short, you're not as tall, and being tall communicates a sense of strength. And there is muscle mass. How much muscle do you have? And it is my guess that at this point where you can have insane quantities of muscle thanks to artificial means, that there's a certain point, ek point aata hai, uske upar all the muscle mass is unattractive, dude. It's just not as attractive. It's just not working. So there's muscle mass, which is how much muscle do you carry in your body. And the fourth is your ability to fight. So even if you're short, And even if your shoulders are kind of thin, they're not as broad. If you can fight, if you're a fighter, if it's part of your story, if you can actually fight, if you're trained, it works. It communicates a sense of strength. On a biological level, it communicates a sense of being protected. It's attractive. It's attractive. The next one is intelligence. And intelligence is weird because you can never quite, well, you can, it could be part of your story. You went to a great school, you're from IITs or IIMs or like at Harvard or whatever the fuck, right? And that communicates that you're obviously intelligent. If you're successful, you're obviously intelligent, right? But there is more proximate ways. There are more immediate things that you can do to communicate intelligence. One of them is humor. If you ever ask a woman, what do you find attractive? She'll be like, he has to be funny. What she means is, he has to be intelligent. But humor evolved as a means of signaling intelligence, particularly in sexual contexts. And that is probably why, I'm not saying definitively, probably why men on average are funnier than women. Because men were left with the job of trying to be funny. Men had to pick that trait up. Men were selected for being funny by women. So more funny genes reproduced than women. Women did not necessarily have to be funny. Men had to be funny. There had to be an element of humor. Likewise, there is an element of conversational wit, which is your ability to make something intelligently funny in the middle of a conversation. There's people who are just not funny overall, but conversationally they're very witty. They can make remarks, they can make callbacks. Like there is a point that you've just made that ties to an interesting, funny thread. There's all these ways in which people are able to accommodate conversational wit, and it signals intelligence. And the third signal of intelligence is conversational mastery, which is a level, I think, at which you can pretty much read where the other person's at in conversation. We go about it ham in Art of Conversation. The purpose of Art of Conversation is for you to get conversational mastery, for you to be able to read if the person's uncomfortable, if they're going to get uncomfortable, how do I maneuver that situation? If they're bored, how did they get bored? How do I get them out of it? If you're able to anticipate where the other person is, and for the other person, particularly in a man-to-woman context, speaking to you has been a situation where before they even realized they were going to be in a situation, you realized that and got them out of it or moved them away from it, where it feels like such a smooth experience, where they were completely taken care of conversationally speaking. You win, bro. You win. You could be, if you've ever looked at a guy who's objectively unattractive, let's just put it like that, but is very attractive to women, it's partly because of that. It's because they can anticipate where the woman's at in an interaction and move it from there. It's your ability to be conversationally masterful. Attitude, which is the next characteristic, right? How do you even begin to understand this? And this is a principle of charm I wanted to communicate for a very long time. You have to get this down straight. If you are a non-judgmental person, if you do not judge yourself for having sexual, romantic, attractive feelings towards her, she's not going to judge herself for having all those feelings towards you, or she's going to be less likely to judge herself. But if you judge yourself, if you are all like shy and then uncomfortable about being shy, nervous and then uncomfortable about being nervous, afraid of rejection and then so afraid, like if you're all jammed, bro, she's going to feel the same. She's going to fear for herself. She's going to be like, okay, this guy who's afraid of rejection, if I accept him, what is he going to do afterwards? She's going to have those questions, as opposed to if it's a fluent guy where it just flows in a specific way. This non-judgmental attitude is not a thing that you spot. It is the absence of judgment. What was the sound? I think Ash is full. Yeah, no problem. It is the absence of judgment that makes conversations smooth. Fact of the matter is, all your insecurities that you might have, that you judge yourself upon, are very close to you. You think they're very important. Everybody else has their own set as well. The women you'll be talking to have their own insecurities, have their own judgments, have their own issues, have their own unhappiness. It's always built in. It's unavoidable. But when you are completely okay owning your insecurities, your limitations, what it does is it creates a comfortable environment because you have to take the lead. You remember from status, you have to take the lead. It creates the environment for her to be okay with it. Just simple as that. It creates an environment where she feels she can be okay with her insecurities. And for 10 minutes, if she's able to forget her insecurities around you, you know what she's going to think? She's going to think, being with him makes me so happy and light and free and all of those things. Finally, it's about physical attractiveness, the thing that shit always boils down to. In fact, I often think the truest privilege in life is to be born attractive, because there's just no fighting that. If you're attractive, you just get special access in life. It's just true. It's sad, but it's just true. Yahan pe in America, when people apply to get college admissions, they removed the process of getting people to put their pictures in the college admission stuff, primarily because admission officers were unconsciously selecting for more attractive people than unattractive people. It's just plain and simple as that. Being physically attractive, and physical attraction ke components are roughly facial symmetry, how symmetrical your face is, facial clarity, how clear your face is, waist to hip ratio. There is a specific waist to hip ratio where there is not a lot of fat around your waist as compared to your hips, or hips as compared to your waist. Like the portion from your comer to your bums should be pretty one straight. That's the most attractive waist to hip ratio in men. Right? How well do you smell? Because a lot of the judgment that women make in terms of who they find attractive is tied to this immunological need to find somebody whose immunity is compatible with their immunity, and that immunological compatibility is signaled through how people smell. And first of all, there is no advice here, but if there was, I would say stop wearing your perfumes and your deodorants, because you're masking your original musk. But largely how well you smell. Huge component. Grooming, huge component. Because if you appear disgusting, that's just, there is a evolutionary pressure to not go near shit. And guys with improper grooming, right, just does not work. It signals the same kind of stuff that we get from garbage. And so groom yourself, man. Get that trim. Get your beard in order, right? Get your hair in order. Get your fingernails in order. Get all of those things down right. And finally, how you dress, which is essentially part of what the package physically looks like. And if you get all of those things down, physical attractiveness is a done signal communicated. That is the history. That is the picture. This is the checklist of what makes a man attractive. This is the rough list. This is the playbook. Now, this is not to say you'll have all of these things down. Don't think of this as a list that you have to achieve. This is going to help you understand what is it that you're missing that you could do better right now that will improve your odds of being found attractive. If you get this shit down, if you get this thing proper, if this is something you're able to do right, your odds of being more attractive increase instantly. From here, there is another complication, which is how do you take attraction and make it into something? How do you make it into a date? How do you make it into a relationship? How do you make it into anything at all? It's not simple. It's not obvious. It's not evident. But at least now you know the puzzle. Now when you observe things in the wild, when you observe realistic characters on TV, now when you observe your friends do well, now when you observe other people in your environment go through this stuff, you are able to tell why is it that it works for them. And then over a period of time, every time you find yourself not being able to work your charm in an interaction, maybe you can look and ask, what is it that I could have done better that might have increased my odds? Now do what you want with this playbook. But if you ever run the course of this playbook, if you ever try this out, if you run the experiment, if you do this shit somewhere, right? Make sure you come and tell me. Make sure you comment. I know this has been a rather long video. This is about 50 minutes already. I wanted to give you a long, raw one. Make sure you tell me what you think. Make sure you tell me what your ideas about this are. Make sure you tell me in the comments, what is it that I can do another raw video for you for like this, right? Make sure you tell your friends about it. This is for free. I gave you all of this information for free. Make sure your friends know. There is enough for everybody. Make sure your friends know. Okay, but I'll see you on the other side. In the meanwhile, if you're interested in confidence, I made a 3-part confidence series right here. You can check it out. Tell me what you think about it. I'll see you, my G's.